This is a hearing that Facebook has tried desperately to prevent. Facebook is one of the most powerful companies in the world. It is one of the most powerful companies in the history of the world, and they have stopped at absolutely nothing to prevent today's testimony. They've absolutely gone to war to try to prevent it. Our witness today is a whistleblower, and not just a whistleblower, but a longtime executive at Facebook. She worked directly with Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sanders and the Facebook brass. Sarah Wynne Williams knows the truth about Facebook. That's what they fear. She knows that while Mark Zuckerberg now claims to be a champion of the United States and claims to be a free speech warrior, he in fact worked hand in glove with the Chinese Communist Party for years. He in fact made censorship his business model. He, in fact, developed censorship tools for the Chinese Communist Party to use against its own people. He, in fact, made Americans' own user data available, was willing to make it available to Beijing. The truth is, Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg have lied to the American people repeatedly. And I think, as we'll see today, they have lied to Congress as well. It's time for this to stop. What she has to say, I dare say China probably doesn't want you to hear what she has to say, but we are going to get the truth.
My name is Sarah Wynne Williams, and I served as the Director of Global Public Policy at Facebook, now Meta, for nearly 7 years, starting in 2011. Throughout those 7 years, I saw Meta executives repeatedly undermine US national security and betray American values. They did these things in secret to win favor with Beijing and build an $18 billion business in China. We are engaged in a high-stakes AI arms race against China. And during my time at Meta, company executives lied about what they were doing with the Chinese Communist Party to employees, shareholders, Congress, and the American public. I sit before this committee today to set the record straight about these illegal and dangerous activities. Meta's dishonesty started with the betrayal of core American values. Mark Zuckerberg pledged himself a free speech champion. Yet I witnessed Meta work hand in glove with the Chinese Communist Party to construct and test custom-built censorship tools that silenced and censored their critics. When Beijing demanded that Facebook delete the account of a prominent Chinese dissident living on American soil, they did it, and then lied to Congress when asked about the incident in a Senate hearing. The willingness to censor was not the only troubling thing I witnessed. I watched as executives decided to provide the Chinese Communist Party with access to Meta user data, including that of Americans. Meta does not dispute these facts. They can't. I have the documents. As recently as this Monday, they claim that they do not operate their services in China. Another lie. In fact, they began offering products and services in China as early as 2014. That hasn't stopped. Their own SEC filings from last year show that China is now Meta's second biggest market. Meanwhile, Meta's AI model, Llama, has contributed significantly to Chinese advances in AI technologies like DeepSeek. Facebook's secret mission to get into China was called Project Aldrin and was restricted to need-to-know staff. There was no bridge too far. Meta built a physical pipeline connecting the United States and China. Meta executives ignored warnings that this would provide backdoor access to the Chinese Communist Party, allowing them to intercept the personal data and private messages of American citizens. The only reason China does not currently have access to US user data through this pipeline is because Congress stepped in. Meta started briefing the Chinese Communist Party as early as 2015. These briefings focused on critical emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence. The explicit goal being to help China outcompete American companies. There's a straight line you can draw from these briefings to the recent revelations that China is developing AI models for military use, relying on Meta's Llama model. Meta's internal documents describe their sales pitch for why China should allow them into the market by, quote, helping China increase global influence and promote the China dream.
In fact, they have, since 2014, 2015, they have launched multiple apps in China, often without, well, always without seeking authorization from this government, not informing their shareholders, not informing Congress, not informing the public. And now they have employees in China. Is that accurate? They have a partnership with Tencent in China. Is that accurate? Their Oculus VR business is in China. Is that accurate? Let's talk about what Meta has been willing to do for profit and power. You said just a moment ago that Meta's dishonesty started with the betrayal of core American values. And have you ever known Mark Zuckerberg to censor on behalf of China?
Yes, Chairman Hawley.
Let's talk about a few specific instances. In 2017, the Chinese dissident Guo Wengyi suddenly had his Facebook profile shut down. Now, Facebook at first said that this was a temporary glitch. Was that true to your knowledge?
No, Senator Hawley.
In fact, Facebook shut down this dissident's page. This dissident, as you pointed out a moment ago, was living on American soil at the time. Facebook shut down that page based on pressure from the Chinese Communist Party. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Let's just take a look here at the documents. Here's some meeting notes taken shortly after a conversation with a Mr. Chow, who's a Communist Chinese Party member, a government official. Here, Mr. Chow asks Facebook, it says to Facebook, that they want Mr. Guo's Facebook page dealt with. The notes say that Chow wants Facebook in China, but there are others who don't, so we Facebook, need to take measures and do more in such situations to demonstrate we can address mutual interests. And then they go on to list, here's what we could do. We could do nothing, we could say we can do something, or we can do even more than expected, but we need to provide a response to the Chinese Communist Party on what we can do. So here we have evidence of high-level contacts between Chinese Communist Party officials and Facebook asking for this dissident's page to be taken down, Facebook acknowledging this pressure, saying we need to do something if we want to get the party's cooperation, the government's cooperation. And what happened next?
Well, Senator Hawley, one thing the Chinese Communist Party and Mark Zuckerberg share is that they want to silence their critics. I can say that from a personal experience. So I think they came to the right man. This led to a series of events where eventually this man on American soil was kicked off the platform.
So in April of 2017, following these conversations, Facebook takes down the profile, bans it, of Mr. Guo. Then in September, they make that ban permanent. Now here's the really interesting thing. When Facebook's general counsel was asked about this directly under oath in a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing, he sang a different tune. Senator Rubio asked him directly, was there any pressure from the Chinese government to block his account? Was there any pressure to block his account? The general counsel, Mr. Stretch, no, Senator. We reviewed a report on that account and analyzed it through regular channels using regular procedures. Was this truthful testimony, Ms. Williams?
No, Senator.
It's in fact an outright lie, is it not?
It is, Senator.
Facebook received direct pressure from the Chinese Communist Party and bowed to it and discussed it internally and planned it and then lied about it to Congress. Let's talk about what else they've been able to do, been willing to do in order to get this access to the Chinese. Of a group of Facebook engineers offering to create a censorship regime that will allow Facebook to block all traffic the Chinese Communist Party doesn't want. Phase 0, this is an internal chat. Phase 0, we identify all traffic that are currently blocked in China and we, Facebook, block them. This is a test for us to see whether we can actually identify all traffic from China. And then the chat continues, yes, good way to build trust. And another conversant says, great stuff, guys, let's do it. Doing here, when they say block all content that China wants, we, Facebook, do it for them. What are they talking about?
They're talking about activating their censorship tools on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party.
Good way to build trust. They mean build trust with the Communist Chinese Party, right?
Correct, Senator.
And great stuff, guys, let's do it. Meaning they greenlit this and went forward to see if they could make it happen. Is that accurate?
That's my understanding, Senator.
All of this, let's be clear, for a murderous regime in China, the most barbaric, most evil regime on the face of the planet, and our free speech champion, Mark Zuckerberg, is here with his team of engineers actively working to make Facebook censor on their behalf. Facebook has said publicly many times, we would never compromise user data. It's a red line in the sand. We'd never do that. Never, never, never. Was Facebook ever willing to share user data with the Chinese Communist Party?
Yes, Senator.
Update, I spoke with the China team yesterday. They flagged a potential complication arising from our negotiations with the Chinese government. I emphasize this is a Facebook document now. These are Facebook executives. In exchange for the ability to do operations in China, Facebook will agree to grant the Chinese government access to Chinese user data, including Hong Kongese user data. And then they talk about they're going to have to get their Hong Kong citizens to re-agree to terms of service so they can slide this right by them. So I want to just be clear about this. Here in this document, Facebook is talking about making Chinese user data available to the Chinese government because they're going to store that data in China. Is that correct?
Correct.
But when you store that data in China, Americans who exchange messages or other information with Chinese Facebook users, that would mean the Chinese government could get access to the American data as well. Is that correct?
Through the POP servers, potentially, yes.
And Facebook was willing to take that risk?
Yes, there was a lot of discussion about this, and ultimately, yes.
I noted in my opening statement, you made allegations about Meta's efforts to help China's government in that field. In your opening statement, you said that Meta's goal was to help China outcompete American companies. Can you explain why they would want to do this, and is there any documentation on that point?
Thank you, Senator. They saw, I guess, part of the value proposition that they could provide the Chinese Communist Party was their expertise in helping Chinese officials. So they explicitly, and I would be happy to provide you with the documentation, called out, U.S. firms. They said, we can help you, China, not have to rely on firms like Cisco or IBM because we can help you with the technical expertise. So they were offering on, things like how to build more efficient data centers or how to ensure that engineers could better understand technology like photo tagging.
Okay. And then, and by the way, that documentation would be appreciated. What was Meta's ultimate goal when they briefed Chinese government on artificial intelligence technology, and what information and technology did they provide?
So I think it links to this value proposition. Meta has some of the best minds of a generation. They've employed the smartest graduates working on cutting-edge technologies like artificial intelligence. So who better, if you're the Chinese Communist Party, to teach you about these technologies than Meta? In terms of understanding the extent of this, I think this is a really great area for your investigation.
Now that Facebook has changed its name to Meta, is Meta currently providing the Chinese government with access to artificial intelligence technology?
So it's been well reported that Chinese researchers have used the Llama model both for AI weapons and also that Llama is part of what powers DeepSeek.
Please describe for the committee how Meta planned to share data from American citizens with the Chinese government, and for example, Did Meta have any agreements with the Communist Chinese government to provide them with the data? And if so, do they still have those agreements, as far as you can tell that you've been gone from the company?
So part of the challenge, as I mentioned, was building like the internet infrastructure to support their China ambitions, and it was through that internet infrastructure that they would gain access to potentially American citizens' data. I think, again, this is another very good area to investigate and get further information directly from the company.
Facebook executives and employees cultivated relationships with members of the Chinese Communist Party?
Absolutely, Senator.
And did members of the Facebook executive team or other employees at Facebook, Meta, ever brief members of the Chinese Communist Party?
Yes, Senator, regularly.
Exchanged information with them?
Yes, Senator.
What are some of the topics that they covered in these briefings?
I mean, it's incredibly broad. So you had meetings at the top executive level, so Mark and Cheryl, and you had meetings, all the way down to, regular engineers who would be providing briefings on cutting-edge technology like facial recognition, which is obviously very helpful to the Chinese Communist Party. Facebook Live.
You testified a moment ago that they would help them, Facebook that is, would help China outcompete other American businesses. Can you just say more about that? I mean, that seems like an extraordinary thing to me. Here you have an American company going to our chief foreign adversary, on whom we currently have tariffs of like 10 billion%, and saying, hey, we'd love to help you. We would love to help you beat all of these other American companies.
I mean, literally, the documents in which they were writing this were called our value proposition to be put before the CCP.
So was information related to artificial intelligence part of these briefings? I know you said that there were some sort of informal discussions, but did Facebook actually brief members of the CCP on artificial intelligence, to your knowledge?
Yes, Senator.
Why would Facebook want to help China with artificial intelligence? I mean, what's the strategy there, do you think? What do you divine the intent to have been?
This is over a period of time where China was rapidly trying to increase its own technological expertise and trying to grow its own homegrown technology company. So it's incredibly valuable to have the brightest minds in the world. In some ways, you could say it's helpful if you want open source to prevail, to have a strong threat from a Chinese model, so that you can say it's really important that America wins this, and we are the American open source option. And I think you can see the way that strategically plays out.
So what you're saying is Facebook's AI model, Llama, I think it's called, that's an open source model, is that right?
Correct.
And I think they just released Llama 4 or something just recently, the last few days. So that's an open source model. Many of the other American competitors, Sam Altman's company, for example, OpenAI, is a closed-sourced model, closed-source code. So Facebook has a fundamentally different take, an open-source model. They're briefing the Chinese government, including CCP officials, on this model, on their information, and then we get the revelation of DeepSeek just a few months ago, China's sort of breakthrough on AI. Do you think that Llama had something to do with DeepSeek? Do you think that information sharing helped lead to DeepSeek?
I think it's been widely reported that the DeepSeek model is in part based on Llama.
In the documents submitted to the subcommittee, Facebook appears to have been willing to provide the data of users in Hong Kong to the Chinese government at a time when pro-democracy protesters were opposing Beijing's crackdown. Is that impression correct? And how did Facebook treat Taiwan or Hong Kong?
So that impression is correct. One of the more surprising things is that as part of the censorship tool that was developed, there were virality counters. So anytime a piece of content got over 10,000 views, that would automatically trigger it being reviewed by what they called the chief editor. What was particularly surprising is that the virality counters were not just installed, but activated in Hong Kong and also in Taiwan.
The fact is, by 2018, Facebook built, it even turned on censorship and surveillance tools that it developed for Chinese security officials, correct?
It developed, and those Chinese Communist Party officials tested the censorship tool and would give feedback and say, this needs to change, or we need this, or we need confidence that you can capture images and filter images we don't want seen. They plan to cover Hong Kong and Taiwan, is my understanding.
So their surveillance operation was directed at Taiwan
That's my understanding, Senator.
and Hong Kong?
That's my understanding. But look, the greatest trick Mark Zuckerberg ever pulled was wrapping the American flag around himself and calling himself a patriot and saying he didn't offer services in China while he spent the last decade building an $18 billion business there.
And he wrapped the flag around himself even as he disclosed sensitive technologies that enabled the Chinese to gain the upper hand on surveilling its citizens, but also the upper hand in engaging with us.
So I have a message to Mark Zuckerberg as well, which is that it's time for you to tell the truth. You should come to this committee and take an oath and sit where Ms. Wynne Williams is sitting now and answer this evidence. Stop trying to silence her, stop trying to gag her, stop trying to hide behind your lawyers and millions of dollars in legal fees you're trying to impose on her. Stop threatening other whistleblowers. Come to this committee, take the oath, sit there, let us question you, and give the American people the truth. We will be waiting for you.